Sung Jinwoo is the main protagonist of solo leveling. Originally, he was an infamously weak E-rank hunter, until he got the chance of a lifetime when he was selected as the player of the system, giving him the unique ability to grow in strength without restraint. By taking advantage of the opportunities offered to him by the system, Jinwoo eventually rose to power as humanity's greatest hunter and the second Shadow Monarch. Welcome to Raza Studios, and today we will be going over all of Sung Jinwoo's powers and abilities within the webcomic Solo Leveling. If you're a fan of webtoons or manhwa, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content on your favorite webtoons and manhwa. Enjoy! The system. After his selfless sacrifice at the Double Dungeon, Jinwoo was selected as a player for the system by the architect, the creator of the system. The purpose of the system was to help the previous Shadow Monarch, Ashbourne, to find a human vessel. As Jinwoo began to train with the system, he discovered that it worked like a video game and that as he pushed his limits and leveled up, he was able to increase his stats and become more powerful. Here are some of the mechanics and rules that come with the system. System rules/mechanics. Unlimited inventory. Jinwoo has access to a dimensional storage unit, which is capable of holding items that he has obtained. He can automatically teleport things within it as long as they are his rewards or items, and he can summon them at will. Item equipment. Jinwoo can equip an item without actually wearing it, gaining all the effects it would have provided, such as status effects to simply blocking attacks without visually wearing them. Shop. Jinwoo can sell items obtained from defeated enemies for gold, and buy a multitude of items like potions, weapons, and armor. Items obtained this way cannot be given to other people, but Jinwoo can use these items, such as potions, on other people by pouring the liquid into the receiver's mouth. After Jinwoo mastered the power of the Shadow Monarch, he gained the ability to create the items he'd find in the shop. Auto-translation. The system automatically translates the language of monsters, so Jinwoo can understand it and speak it. Levels. After killing enemies, as long as they're not too weak compared to him, Jinwoo gains experience. With enough experience, he gains a level. A level increases all of his stats by 1, as well as giving him 5 additional stat points to spend as he wishes. His health and stamina also replenishes when he levels up. Stats. Stats are numbers that represent Jinwoo's proficiency in the given attributes: strength, agility, endurance, perception, and intelligence. Strength represents his physical strength, including lifting strength, speed, and durability. Agility represents his perception of time and reaction speed, allowing him to see enemies on his level in slow motion. Endurance represents his health, resistance to status effects, and stamina. Perception represents his 5 senses. It can be amplified to the point that he can hear others' heartbeat from meters away and see in the dark clearly with very minimal lighting. This stat also encompasses his 6th sense that allows one to detect others' life energy, mana, and emotions like bloodlust. Intelligence represents the total mana and regeneration of it. The higher his intelligence stat, the more effective his magic-dependent abilities will be. Quests. Under certain circumstances, Jinwoo is tasked with a quest detailing objectives to complete. If completed, he can gain rewards. But if he fails, he will receive a penalty. Here are the common recurring quests. The Road to Power quest is Jinwoo's daily quest. He has to do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and run 10 kilometers within the day the quest is given. The rewards are a random item box, which usually contains random junk that isn't useful in combat, a status recovery that can be used whenever he pleases, and 3 stat points. If Jinwoo doesn't complete the daily quest, he will get transported into a pocket dimension with giant centipedes that he must evade for 4 hours. Before acquiring the Black Heart, the Slay the Enemies quest would force Jinwoo to engage in a quest that necessitates that he kills his opponent if they show a high enough bloodlust towards him. If the opponent has a special ability, killing them lets Jinwoo acquire a runestone that he can absorb, which teaches him their ability. Titles. The Wolf Slayer title is a title given to a hunter proficient in fights against wolves, and it increases the user's stats by 40% when going against peace-type monsters. After defeating the King of Demons, Baron Monarch of the White Flames, and acquiring the memories of Ashbourne, the Demon Slayer title gives an immense power to the player. It acknowledges the player as its new owner, and the player is given the Black Heart, which gives Jinwoo an additional 100,000 mana points. The one who triumphed over adversity title is given to those who overcame adversity heroically. Jinwoo's stats increase proportionally to his missing health. For every 1% of health that Jinwoo is missing at the end of the battle, his stats also increase by 1%. A title that rewards the player for taking a high risk by repaying them with a high reward. The player title is not an actual title that is turned on or off, but it represents Jinwoo's connection to the system. The relevant distinction between a player and a regular human is that he's considered a player first, then a human, so he'll be unaffected by abilities that are made to work on humans. Powers and abilities. Let's start with the most common ability that Jinwoo attained, immense strength. Prior to his reawakening, Sung Jinwoo as an E-ranked hunter was stronger than your average human, but far inferior to the average hunter. After his reawakening, Jinwoo's physical strength skyrocketed due to his leveling system. As his level grew, he grew stronger and eventually became the strongest hunter in the world. Ranking high even among national-level hunters, his feats of strength are seen as he is able to beat Andre Thomas, a man known as the strongest hunter, to the brink of death with only his fists. Jinwoo has killed and one-shotted giants larger than skyscrapers, and he was able to slice the dragon monarch, Antares, in half. The same monarch who was able to tank multiple missiles to the face without flinching. Immense speed. Jinwoo also possesses immense speed, which he displayed early on in the series. Right after his reawakening, he was able to throw a broken dagger at the speed of sound and defeat a D-ranked boss. Jinwoo has also dispatched multiple ogres without A-rank hunters perceiving his movement, and he was able to dodge Antares' breath of destruction, which is a move known to be faster than the speed of light. Nigh invulnerability/durability. Jinwoo possesses incredible durability, making it extremely difficult to injure him. He is also immune to all diseases, poisons, and debuffs. Fun fact, Jinwoo was unable to get drunk because the system saw alcohol as a poisonous substance. His feats of durability and nigh invulnerability are also seen in his ability to take a punch from the Ant King with little to no damage. He was able to take multiple hits from a full-powered Antares, and he was able to brush off the damage and debuffs of the Plague Monarch. Stamina. Jinwoo's stamina works differently due to his system, usually getting measured in percentages. 0 to 69% indicate no negative effects, 70 to 89% results in Jinwoo's speed decreasing by half in heavy breathing, and 90 to 100% results in breathing and moving becoming exponentially harder. When Jinwoo acquired his first ki, he reaches 90% relatively quickly in a few minutes, while using all of his abilities at once, but can both push himself as well as recover it completely once per day. By the second ki, he can hunt for days in a place so hot that most of the oxygen in the air burns away. By the third, he can do the previous for weeks. By the fourth, he did so for over a month, and only stopped because he was needed outside. By his fifth ki, he has over 10 times as much stamina as before. By the end of the story, he fought all of the monarchs without rest for 27 years. Regeneration/healing. Jinwoo has an incredible healing factor, which allows him to rapidly heal from most injuries. This ability of his stems from the fact that the system needed Jinwoo to be the strongest he could possibly be, in order to make him a proper vessel for Ashbourne. This ability works hand in hand with his skills, perseverance, longevity, and will to rehabilitate, and they allow Jinwoo to push past his limits. After attaining his full Shadow Monarch powers, Jinwoo was able to heal from being impaled and almost frozen to death by both the Ice and Beast Monarch, two monarchs who were easily able to kill national rank hunters. Intelligence. Jinwoo is a combat genius. After being outplayed by Antares, Jinwoo crafted a scheme that rendered the army of destruction useless and secretly worked with the rulers, and had them finish off Antares after he weakened him in their battle. During the 27 years he spent within Chaos World, he mastered his abilities as the Shadow Monarch, and after the time skip he used his abilities to become the ultimate detective. With his great perception, he constantly adapts to his opponent's movements, and he can see through most unpredictable fighting styles. He's mastered proficiency in his usage of the Shadow Army, and thus he can span their abilities when engaging in combat. Active skills. Stealth. Stealth is a rare camouflage skill primarily used by assassin-type hunters. Jinwoo is able to physically blend in with his surroundings and hide all traces of his presence, essentially making him both physically and magically invisible. Although the skill is very useful, it is also very taxing on the user's mana, requiring 200 mana to activate and then 10 mana for every second it stays activated. Bloodlust. A skill that allows Jinwoo to intimidate his opponents into submission. It puts his enemies into a fear-like status, which reduces their stats by 50%. The fear is described to feel like being unable to move while being submerged in very deep water. Vital Strike, also known as Critical Strike, is a skill that allows Jinwoo to locate and attack his opponent's vital spot. Eventually, this skill was evolved into the skill Mutilate, which allows Jinwoo to rip his target to shreds. Dagger Throw, a skill that allows him to toss his daggers at his target with increased accuracy and strength as his skill stat increases. After having learned Ruler's Authority, Jinwoo is able to use all his daggers remotely. It is later evolved into Dagger Rush, which allows him to barrage his target with his daggers from all directions. Ruler's Authority, an ability common among monarchs and rulers, which allows Jinwoo to move objects and even beings via psychokinesis. The skill was previously known as Dominator's Touch until Jinwoo evolved it. After becoming Shadow Monarch, Jinwoo was able to use this skill on himself to help him fly. Dragon's Fear. Jinwoo is able to unleash a mana-infused roar from his soul that drives anyone weaker than him into a state of intense despair and panic, causing them to freeze in place. Armor Creation. By concentrating his mana around himself, Jinwoo can create a jet black-like armor on his body. He can increase his size and make a giant-sized version of himself. Sprint, a skill that increases Jinwoo's speed by 30% using 1 mana point per minute used. The skill later evolved into Quicksilver, which allowed Jinwoo to increase his speed by 40%, but now costing 5 mana points every minute it's used. Passive Skills. Kendyaru's Blessing. Kendyaru's Blessing grants Jinwoo both the skills, Longevity, which makes him immune to all diseases, poisons, and debuffs, and Will to Rehabilitate, which allows Jinwoo to restore any dismembered body parts or limbs that he may lose. Sleeping will also increase his regenerative ability and help him recover faster. Unyielding Spirit. When Jinwoo's health is below 30%, the damage that he receives will be reduced by 50%. Advanced Dagger Arts. When Jinwoo is using his daggers, his attack will deal out an additional 33% damage. Kasaka's Armored Skin. This skill reduces all physical damage by 20%. Evolution. If Jinwoo dies as a player while he has the Black Heart, it is given the ability to reincarnate as the true Shadow Monarch. Job-specific class skills. After completing his class change quest, Jinwoo was offered the class Necromancer, which soon evolved into the hidden class Shadow Lord. This granted him the ability to revive deceased enemies and people and turn them into his shadows, soldiers who serve and fight alongside him in combat. Shadow Extraction. By calling out the command Arise, he extracts a fallen enemy's shadow, creating a copy of them. The success rate depends on the power of the one being resurrected compared to the user, the amount of time that has passed since its death, and also the level of concentration the user has at the time. Shadow extraction can only be attempted 3 times before the shadow is permanently lost. While not directly stated, those limitations should not exist when Jinwoo is no longer bound to the system. Before Jinwoo became the perfect Shadow Monarch, the extracted shadows would be weaker than their alive counterparts. After becoming the new Shadow Monarch, extracted shadows become more powerful than they were when they were alive. As the perfect Shadow Monarch, he has access to more than 130,000 Shadow Soldiers, and by the end of the series, he has access to over 10 million Shadow Soldiers. When level 2 of Shadow Extraction is reached, Jinwoo unlocks the Boost effect, which increases the odds of enhancing the stats of the extracted shadow. Shadow Storage. Jinwoo can store shadows in his or someone else's actual shadow, which allows him to summon numerous different creatures. Killing the shadows will merely incapacitate them. When level 2 of Shadow Storage is reached, Jinwoo unlocks the Sensory Sharing effect, which allows Jinwoo to share sensory perception with a single designated Shadow Soldier from his storage. Jinwoo's storage consists of knights, mages, giant ice bears, high orcs, giant ants, and even angelic-like soldiers. Shadow Exchange. Jinwoo can swap places with a summoned shadow by creating a gate that bridges the 2 locations. At level 1, it has a cooldown of 3 hours, At level 2, it has a cooldown of 2 hours, and after becoming the new Shadow Monarch, it no longer has a cooldown. Domain of the Monarch. Jinwoo can spread his shadow to encompass dozens of square meters. All shadows within it will gain a 50% increase in all stats. When this skill is in effect, Jinwoo's shadow's color will change from blue to purple. That concludes all the powers and abilities that Jinwoo possesses. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like to help get the engagement up. Also, if you enjoy solo leveling, then check out my video on the life of Sung Jinwoo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.